I drove 4 hours through the rain to watch my grandson cut the ribbon on his new restaurant. But when I pulled into the parking lot, I found my own photograph taped to the hostess stand, with 3 words written in red marker beneath it. Do not seat. I didn't make a scene. I didn't demand an explanation. I simply walked back to my truck, made 1 phone call, and within 2 hours, the grand opening became a grand closing. Before I tell you how I turned my grandson's biggest night into his most valuable lesson, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Tell me in the comments if you have ever been rejected by someone you raised, someone you sacrificed everything for. I want to hear your story. My name is Raymond Porter. Most folks around here just call me Ray. At 67 years old, I have a face that tells the story of 40 years in the trucking industry and hands that have gripped more steering wheels than I can count. To the outside world, I am just a retired trucker living in a modest ranch house outside of Memphis, driving a dented Chevy Silverado that has seen better decades. To my grandson Tyler, I am apparently an embarrassment, a relic of a past he would rather forget. It was a Friday evening in October, the kind of crisp autumn night that makes you believe good things are about to happen. I was wearing my best flannel shirt, the one my late wife Dorothy had ironed for me before she passed 3 years ago. I had even polished my boots, though they were work boots, not dress shoes. I figured Tyler would understand. He used to love those boots when he was a kid. He used to beg me to let him try them on, clomping around the living room pretending to be a cowboy. I was driving toward Nashville, toward the riverfront district where Tyler had opened his restaurant. He called it Aurelius, some fancy Latin name that his wife Madison had picked. She was into that sort of thing. Classical references and pretentious vocabulary. Tyler had told me about the grand opening 6 months ago. He had called me, excited, his voice cracking the way it used to when he was 12 and caught his first fish. "Grandpa," he had said, "this is it. This is my dream. I want you there." I wouldn't miss it for the world, I had told him, and I meant it. But somewhere between that phone call and tonight, something changed. I found out what that something was when I pulled into the parking lot of Aurelius and saw the valet attendants in their crisp black vests, looking at my truck like it was a spaceship that had crash-landed from another dimension. I stepped out of the cab. The rain had stopped, but the pavement was still wet, reflecting the golden lights of the restaurant like a mirror. I could see through the floor-to-ceiling windows that the place was packed. Men in suits, women in cocktail dresses, champagne flutes catching the light. It looked like a magazine spread. I walked toward the entrance. A young woman stood at the hostess podium, her smile bright and practiced. She looked at me, then looked past me, searching for whoever I must have been accompanying. When she realized I was alone, her smile flickered. "Good evening, sir," she said. "Do you have a reservation?" "I am here for the grand opening," I said. "I am Tyler Mitchell's grandfather." Her face changed. It was subtle, just a tightening around the eyes, but I caught it. She reached beneath the podium and pulled out a laminated sheet of paper. She held it up, and I saw my own face staring back at me. It was a photo from last Christmas, the one where I was wearing my old fishing vest and holding up a bass I had caught at the lake. Someone had printed it out and written beneath it in thick red marker, "Do not seat. If he arrives, inform management immediately." I stared at the photograph. My brain refused to process what I was seeing. "I am sorry, sir," the hostess said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I have strict instructions from Mrs. Mitchell. You are not on the guest list." Mrs. Mitchell. Madison. My grandson's wife of 2 years. The woman who had looked at my house during their one and only visit and called it quaint, which I later learned was her way of saying pathetic. "There must be a mistake," I said. Tyler invited me himself. The hostess shook her head. She looked uncomfortable, almost apologetic. "I am sorry, Mr. Porter. I was told to call security if you insisted on entering. Mrs. Mitchell said you would cause a scene. She said you might be intoxicated." Intoxicated. I had not touched a drop of alcohol in 15 years, not since Dorothy asked me to quit after my heart surgery. But Madison did not know that. Madison did not know anything about me except what she had decided to believe. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a text message from Tyler. My heart leaped, hoping for an explanation, hoping this was all some terrible misunderstanding. The message was long. It was devastating. Grandpa, please don't come tonight. Madison's parents are here. They're important people, investors, politicians. If they see you, if they see your truck, if they hear about your background, it could ruin everything. You don't understand this world. You never have. I love you, but you don't fit here. Please just go home. I'll send you pictures. I'll call you next week. Just please, for once in your life, don't make this about you. I read the message 3 times. Each time, the words cut deeper. Don't make this about you. As if wanting to watch my grandson achieve his dream was selfish. As if driving 4 hours in the rain was an act of ego rather than love. I looked at the hostess. She was watching me with something that might have been pity. Tell Tyler, I started to say, but then I stopped. What was there to tell? He had made his choice. He had chosen Madison's world over mine. He had chosen champagne over coffee, silk over flannel, investors over family. Never mind, I said. I understand. I turned and walked back to my truck. The parking lot attendant watched me go, probably relieved that the old man in the work boots was leaving without incident. I climbed into the cab and sat there for a long moment, my hands gripping the steering wheel. The sadness lasted about 30 seconds. Then it transformed into something else, something colder, something that felt like clarity. See, Tyler and Madison made a fatal miscalculation. They looked at my truck and saw poverty. They looked at my flannel shirts and saw ignorance. They assumed that because I lived simply, I was simple. They assumed that because I had driven trucks for 40 years, I had nothing to show for it. They did not know that I had sold my trucking company 12 years ago for $11 million. They did not know that I had invested that money wisely, quietly, without fanfare. They did not know that I owned the building Tyler's restaurant was located in. I had purchased the entire block 5 years ago as part of a commercial real estate portfolio that now generated $200,000 a month in rental income. I was not just Tyler's grandfather. I was his landlord, and he had no idea. I reached for my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed. Patricia Okonkwo. Patricia was my property manager, a sharp woman in her 50s who had helped me navigate the Nashville real estate market for the past decade. She answered on the second ring. Ray, she said, is everything all right? I thought you were at your grandson's opening tonight. Change of plans, I said. I need you to pull the file on the riverfront property, the building where Aurelius is located. I have it right here, Patricia said. I was actually going to call you tomorrow. Tyler's wife came in last month to renegotiate the lease terms. She wanted a reduction in rent because of renovation costs. I told her I would have to consult with the property owner. What did you tell her about the owner? Nothing, Patricia said. She asked, but I told her the owner preferred to remain anonymous. Standard procedure. She seemed annoyed. She said something about the owner probably being some old dinosaur who didn't understand modern business. I almost laughed. A dinosaur. That was exactly what they thought I was. Patricia, I said, I want you to activate the default clause in their lease. Section 7, paragraph C. The one about conduct unbecoming. There was a pause on the line. Ray, are you sure? That clause allows for immediate termination if the tenant engages in behavior that brings disrepute to the property or its owner. It's the nuclear option. I was banned from my own building tonight, Patricia. My photograph was posted at the entrance with instructions to remove me if I caused trouble. I think that qualifies as disrepute. Good Lord, Patricia whispered. They did what? I want you to call the building superintendent, I continued. I want the power to that unit reduced to emergency levels only. I want the water pressure dropped. I want maintenance to conduct an immediate inspection of the kitchen ventilation systems. If anything is out of code, I want it flagged. Ray, Patricia said slowly, there are 200 people in that restaurant right now. Investors, press. If we do this tonight, it will be a disaster. I know, I said. That's the point. They wanted a grand opening without me. They're about to get exactly what they asked for. I hung up the phone. I sat in the darkness of my truck, watching the golden lights of Aurelius through the rain-streaked windshield. I could see Tyler through the window, standing near the bar, shaking hands with a man in an expensive suit. He looked happy. He looked relieved. He probably thought the crisis had been averted, the embarrassing grandfather successfully redirected. He had no idea what was coming. I started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot. I drove to a coffee shop 3 blocks away, a small place with good Wi-Fi and comfortable booths. I ordered a black coffee and opened my laptop. I logged into the property management portal and navigated to the security camera feeds for my buildings. There were 4 cameras in the Aurelia space, 1 in the dining room, 1 in the kitchen, 1 in the storage area, 1 at the back entrance. I selected the dining room feed and watched. The restaurant was in full swing. Waiters glided between tables carrying plates of food that looked like art installations. A jazz quartet played in the corner. Madison was holding court near the entrance, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her dress probably costing more than my monthly grocery bill. She was laughing at something, throwing her head back in that performative way she had. I watched Tyler approach her. He leaned in and whispered something. She nodded, smiling, then whispered something back. He visibly relaxed. They had won. The old man was gone. The evening was saved. I took a sip of my coffee and waited. 18 minutes later, the lights flickered. It was subtle at first, just a momentary dimming that made the candles on the tables seem brighter by comparison. A few guests looked up, mildly curious, then returned to their conversations. Then the kitchen ventilation system shut down. I watched on the camera as a plume of smoke began to drift out from the kitchen doors. It wasn't dangerous, just the accumulated steam and cooking exhaust that normally vented through the rooftop system. Without ventilation, it had nowhere to go. The smoke detectors activated. The alarm was deafening even through my laptop speakers. Red lights began flashing throughout the dining room. The sprinkler system, thankfully, did not engage. I had specifically told Patricia to disable that. I wanted drama, not destruction. The guests began to panic. Women in heels stumbled toward the exits. Men in suits pulled out their phones, probably tweeting about the disaster in real time. The jazz quartet stopped playing mid-song, their instruments falling silent. Then the building superintendent appeared. Gerald Washington was a large man with a clipboard and an expression of professional concern. He walked directly to Tyler and Madison, who were standing near the bar, looking like their world was collapsing around them. I turned up the volume on my laptop. The camera microphones were sensitive enough to catch most of the conversation. "Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell," Gerald announced. "I apologize for the interruption, but we have received notice from the property owner that there are serious code violations in your kitchen ventilation system. Fire marshal has been notified. I'm afraid we need to evacuate the building immediately pending inspection." "Code violations?" Tyler's voice cracked. "That's impossible. We passed inspection last month." Gerald shrugged. "New inspection standards. The property owner has requested a full review. Until that's complete, this establishment cannot operate." Madison stepped forward, her face twisted with fury. "This is ridiculous. Do you know who we are? My father is Thomas Bradley. He's on the city council. 1 phone call, and I'll have your job." Gerald did not flinch. "Ma'am, the property owner's instructions are clear. You have 15 minutes to evacuate the premises before we begin the inspection. Anyone remaining after that point will be escorted out by security." "Who is this property owner?" Tyler demanded. "I want to speak with them directly." "This is sabotage." Gerald consulted his clipboard. "The property is owned by Porter Holdings, LLC. The managing member is listed as Raymond Porter." The color drained from Tyler's face so fast I thought he might collapse. "Raymond Porter," he repeated. "My grandfather? I can't speak to family relations, sir," Gerald said. "I only know that Mr. Porter's instructions were very specific. He cited something called the conduct clause in your lease, said you violated it tonight." Madison grabbed Tyler's arm. "Your grandfather owns this building? You said he was a retired truck driver. You said he had nothing." "He does have nothing," Tyler stammered. "He lives in a shack. He drives a 20-year-old truck. This has to be a mistake." "No mistake," Gerald said. "I've worked for Mr. Porter for 8 years. He owns 6 buildings in this district. He's one of the largest commercial landlords in Nashville. He just doesn't like to advertise it. I watched Madison's face cycle through a dozen emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, disbelief, rage, and finally, a cold, calculating recognition of what she had done. "The photograph," she whispered. At the hostess stand, Tyler turned to her. "What photograph?" "I told them to post his picture at the entrance," Madison said, her voice hollow. "I told them not to let him in. I said he would embarrass us." "You banned him?" Tyler's voice rose to a shout. "You banned my grandfather from my restaurant? In his own building?" "I didn't know," Madison screamed back. "How was I supposed to know he wasn't some broke hillbilly? You never told me anything about his money." "I didn't know about his money," Tyler shouted. "I didn't know he owned anything." He never said a word. I took another sip of coffee. The irony was almost too perfect. Tyler was right. I had never said a word about my finances because he had never asked. He had assumed, just like his wife had assumed, that a man who chose to live simply must be poor. They had judged the book by its cover without ever bothering to open a single page. The evacuation was chaotic. I watched as guests streamed out of the restaurant, their faces illuminated by the flashing emergency lights. The investors Madison had worked so hard to impress were now standing on the sidewalk, checking their phones, probably researching the name Porter Holdings, and realizing they had just witnessed something unprecedented. The press was having a field day. I could see a woman with a microphone doing a stand-up report in front of the building. The chyron on her cameraman's monitor probably read something like, "New restaurant grand opening, shut down over code violations." By morning, it would be viral. But the night was not over. I had one more call to make. I dialed Patricia's number. "It's done," she said before I could speak. "Building is cleared. Fire marshal is on scene. He's a friend of mine. He's going to take his time with the inspection." "Good," I said. "Now I need you to do something else. Call the Mitchell's landlord, the apartment complex where Tyler and Madison live." "Ray," Patricia said carefully, "you own that complex too." "I know," I said. "I want their lease reviewed. I seem to remember some irregularities in their income verification documents." Madison claimed Tyler was making $150,000 a year as head chef at his previous job. "I want that verified." There was a long pause. "That claim was false," Patricia said slowly. "I checked it myself when they applied. Tyler's actual salary was $42,000. Madison provided a falsified pay stub. "That's lease fraud," I said. "Grounds for immediate eviction." "Ray, if I file that paperwork tonight, they'll be homeless by the end of the week." I looked at my coffee. It had gone cold. "File it," I said. I closed my laptop. I drove home through the dark Tennessee countryside, the familiar roads unwinding before my headlights like ribbons of memory. I thought about Tyler as a boy, sitting on my lap while I taught him to drive the big rig. I thought about the time he fell off his bicycle and I carried him half a mile to the emergency room because his mother was at work and I was the only one there. I thought about the pride in his eyes when he graduated culinary school, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. I thought about the text message. "You don't fit here." I pulled into my driveway. The ranch house was dark. Dorothy had always left the porch light on for me, but Dorothy was gone now. I was alone. I walked inside and poured myself a glass of water. I did not turn on the television. I did not check my phone. I sat in my armchair, the one that still smelled faintly of Dorothy's perfume, and I waited. The call came at 2:47 inches the morning. It was Tyler. "Grandpa." His voice was raw, shredded by what sounded like hours of crying. "Grandpa, please. I know you're awake. Please answer." I picked up the phone but said nothing. I just listened. "I'm sorry," Tyler sobbed. "I'm so sorry. Madison, she told me you would cause problems. She said your truck would embarrass her parents. She said you would drink too much and tell inappropriate stories. She made it sound like she was protecting me. She was protecting her image," I said quietly. "And you let her." "I know," he choked. "I know. Grandpa, they're saying we have to leave the apartment. They're saying we falsified documents. Madison, she said she did it to help us get approved, but now they're calling it fraud." "It is fraud, Tyler." "Please," Tyler begged. Please fix this. You have the money. You own everything. You can make this go away. I can, I agreed. But I won't. Why? His voice cracked. Why are you doing this to me? I'm your grandson. I'm your blood. I looked at the photograph on my mantle. It was Tyler at age 7, sitting on the hood of my truck, grinning with a gap-toothed smile. I wondered where that boy had gone. Because you need to learn something, Tyler, I said. Something I clearly failed to teach you. A man's worth is not measured by his bank account or his address or the car he drives. It's measured by his word, by his loyalty, by how he treats the people who loved him before he had anything worth having. I built my fortune 1 mile at a time, Tyler. I drove through blizzards and hurricanes. I missed birthdays and holidays. I slept in truck stops and ate gas station food. And I did it so that the people I loved would never have to struggle the way I did. But you, I continued, my voice hardening, you looked at my sacrifice and saw something to be ashamed of. You looked at my truck and saw failure. You let your wife ban me from watching you achieve the dream I helped finance. You helped finance? Tyler whispered. Who do you think gave you the down payment for the restaurant, Tyler? Who do you think co-signed the small business loan? It wasn't Madison's father. It was me. I funneled it through a trust so you wouldn't know. I wanted you to feel like you earned it yourself. I wanted you to have pride. There was a long silence on the line. I didn't know, Tyler said finally. Grandpa, I swear I didn't know any of this. You didn't know because you never asked, I said. You assumed. You looked at the surface and stopped looking. You judged me by my clothes and my truck and my accent. You let your wife convince you that I was a liability instead of a legacy. What do I do? Tyler's voice was small, like a child's. Where do I go? Madison's parents won't take us. They're furious about the restaurant disaster. Her father is threatening to sue me for damaging his reputation. I reached into the drawer of my side table and pulled out a single key. It was the key to a property I owned on the east side of Nashville, a small studio apartment above a laundromat. It had a hot plate, a mattress, and a window that overlooked the train tracks. There is a key under the mat at 1847 Eastland Avenue, I said. It's a studio apartment. The rent is paid for 1 month. After that, you're on your own. A studio? Tyler said. Grandpa, I can't live in a studio. I'm a chef. I have a reputation. You have nothing, Tyler, I corrected him. Your reputation is in shambles. Your restaurant is closed pending investigation. Your lease is being terminated for fraud. Your wife's family has disowned you. You are exactly where I was 50 years ago, at the bottom. This isn't fair, Tyler cried. Neither was watching my photograph being held up at a hostess stand with instructions to remove me like a stray dog, I said. But here we are. I heard Madison's voice in the background, shrill and demanding. She was saying something about lawyers, about lawsuits, about making me pay. Tell Madison, I said calmly, that if she wants to sue me, she's welcome to try. But she should know that I have documentation of every falsified document she submitted for every lease, every loan, every credit application. If she wants a legal battle, I will bury her. The line went quiet. Tyler, I said, there's an application on the kitchen counter of that apartment. It's for a dishwasher position at a restaurant on the east side. The pay is minimum wage. The hours are brutal. But the owner is a friend of mine, and he's willing to give you a chance to start over. You want me to wash dishes? Tyler's voice was incredulous. I'm an executive chef. You were an executive chef, I said. Now you're a man who needs to learn what it means to earn something without a safety net. And if I refuse, then you refuse, I said. The door is open. But if you walk out of this conversation without accepting my terms, you walk out of my life forever. No inheritance, no trust fund, no second chances. You become a stranger. There was a long pause. I could hear Madison hissing in the background, telling Tyler to hang up, to call a lawyer, to fight back. I'll do it, Tyler said finally. I'll take the apartment. I'll wash the dishes. But Grandpa, please, can Madison come with me? She has nowhere else to go. I thought about Madison. I thought about the photograph at the hostess stand. I thought about the word hillbilly and the word quaint and the way she had looked at my home like it was a disease. Madison made her choices, I said. She can make her own arrangements. I hung up the phone. I sat in the darkness for a long time, listening to the silence of the house. The clock on the wall ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, a dog barked. I had just done the hardest thing I had ever done. I had let my grandson fall. But sometimes, the only way to teach someone to swim is to stop holding them up. The months passed slowly. I watched from a distance, using Patricia's reports and my own observations to track Tyler's progress. The first month was brutal. He lost 15 pounds. He developed blisters on his hands from the industrial dish soap. He came home to the studio apartment every night smelling of grease and exhaustion, collapsing onto the thin mattress without even bothering to shower. Madison filed for divorce 3 weeks after the grand opening disaster. She took what little money Tyler had left and moved back to her parents' house in Connecticut. Tyler signed the papers without a fight. He told Patricia, who told me, that he felt like he was waking up from a long dream. By the 3rd month, Tyler had been promoted from dishwasher to prep cook. It was not glamorous work, chopping vegetables and portioning ingredients, but he did it without complaint. He started talking to the other kitchen staff, learning their stories, realizing that many of them had struggles that made his own seem trivial. By the 6th month, Tyler had found a second job, working mornings at a food truck that parked near the university. He was saving money. He was paying off the debts Madison had accumulated. He was becoming someone I recognized. I went to the food truck once, in disguise. I wore a baseball cap and sunglasses, standing in line with the college students. When I reached the window, Tyler was there, sweating over the grill, flipping burgers with a focus I had never seen in him before. "What can I get you, sir?" he asked without looking up. "Cheeseburger," I said. "No onions." He glanced up. Our eyes met. He froze. "Grandpa," he whispered. I held up my hand. "I'm just a customer today, Tyler. Make me a good burger." He nodded slowly. He turned back to the grill, and he made me the best cheeseburger I had ever eaten. 1 year to the day after the grand opening disaster, I walked into a small diner on the east side of Nashville. It was not fancy. The booths were cracked vinyl. The coffee was mediocre, but the food was honest, and the kitchen was clean. Tyler was behind the counter, wearing a white apron stained with the day's work. He had been promoted to sous chef at the restaurant next door, but he still picked up shifts at the diner when they were short-staffed. He looked up when the bell over the door chimed. "Grandpa," he said. His voice was steady. His eyes were clear. "Tyler," I said. He poured me a cup of coffee without asking. "Black, no sugar," he remembered. "I have something for you," I said. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folder. I slid it across the counter. Tyler opened it slowly, his hands still bearing the calluses of a year of hard work. Inside was a single document, a partnership agreement. "I'm reopening Aurelius," I said. "Different location, different concept, same name. I need a head chef." Tyler stared at the document. I watched his jaw tighten. His eyes fill with tears he refused to let fall. "You're offering me my restaurant back?" he asked. "No," I said. "I'm offering you a job. Entry level. You'll start as a line cook. You'll work your way up like everyone else. If you prove yourself, if you show me that you've really changed, then maybe someday we talk about partnership. But that day is not today." He looked at me. He looked at the document. He looked at the coffee he had poured. "I accept," he said. I reached across the counter and shook his hand. His palm was rough now, hardened by a year of work. It felt like my hand. "One more thing," I said. "There's a woman who's been handling my properties for the past decade. Her name is Patricia Okonkwo. I want you to meet with her next week. She's going to teach you how to read a lease, how to negotiate a contract, how to manage finances. If you're going to run a restaurant someday, you need to understand the business from the ground up." Tyler nodded. "I will. I'll learn everything." I stood up to leave. I left a 20 on the counter for the coffee. "Grandpa," Tyler called out. I turned back. "I'm sorry," he said. "For everything. For the photograph. For the text message. for letting Madison convince me that you were something to be ashamed of. You're the best man I've ever known, and I was too blind to see it. I looked at him for a long moment. The boy who had sat on my lap in the truck, the young man who had hugged me at his graduation, the stranger who had banned me from his restaurant, and now, finally, the man standing before me with honest eyes and working hands. I know, I said. That's why you're getting a second chance. I walked out of the diner into the autumn sunshine. My truck was parked across the street, dented and old and perfect. I climbed in and started the engine. The lesson had taken a year. It had cost Tyler his marriage, his restaurant, his pride, and nearly his relationship with me. But he had learned it. He had learned that family is not a burden to be hidden. He had learned that wealth without character is worthless. He had learned that the man in the flannel shirt and the work boots was worth more than all the investors in all the silk suits in the world. I drove home with the windows down, letting the cool air wash over me. Dorothy would have been proud. She always said Tyler had potential. He just needed someone to believe in him enough to let him fail. We live in a world that worships appearances, where people measure success by the car you drive and the clothes you wear. But true wealth isn't found in a portfolio or a prestigious address. It's found in the hands that built something real. It's found in the relationships that survive the hardest tests. It's found in the courage to let someone you love hit rock bottom so they can learn to climb. If you believe that respect must be earned, not inherited, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories of justice, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds of family.